Cheating bride's wedding affair with father-in-law ends in murder. A pristine white wedding gown, adorned with intricate lace and delicate beadwork, lies sprawled across the manicured lawn of one of Atlanta's most prestigious homes. What catches the eye, however, isn't the fine craftsmanship or the expensive fabric. It's the dark crimson stain spreading across the bodice, a stark reminder that this day of celebration ended in death, blood, and betrayal. A father-in-law's obsession, a groom's discovery, a bride's desperate act. This is the story of Amara Johnson and Terrence Brooks, and how their wedding day became a crime scene. Have you ever sat across from a couple, watching them exchange loving glances, only to wonder what secrets might lurk beneath their smiles? Have you witnessed a family's carefully constructed public image and questioned what truths they might be hiding? We're drawn to these perfect facades, these idealized portraits of love and success, never quite seeing the cracks until everything shatters. In Atlanta's affluent circles, appearances aren't just maintained, they're meticulously crafted. The Johnson and Brooks families represented Black excellence, generational wealth, and community respect. The Johnson soul food empire fed the city's body, while the Brooks legal dynasty fought for its justice. Their union through marriage wasn't just a celebration of love. It was a merger of power, influence, and legacy. But beneath the champagne toasts and elegant vows, a dangerous attraction was brewing. An attraction that crossed boundaries no one dared speak of. An attraction between a bride seeking the father figure she never had and a powerful man who should have known better. What drives someone to risk everything? Family, reputation, freedom for forbidden passion. How does desire become so consuming that it leads to murder? And who really wielded the garden ornament that ended Leonard Brooks' life on what should have been his son's happiest day? The answers lie in a complex web of emotional neglect, manipulation, and desperation that will challenge everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and family bonds. Before we journey deeper into this tragic tale of passion and betrayal, take a moment to subscribe to Mr. Body Crime. Each week, we explore true crime stories that aren't just shocking, they're instructive, because understanding the breaking points of others might just help us recognize the warning signs in our own lives. Hit that subscribe button now and join our community of critical thinkers who look beyond the headlines to find the human truths beneath. Amara Johnson grew up in Atlanta's vibrant West End, raised by a mother who worked double shifts at local diners before opening her first soul food restaurant. The absence of a father left a void in Amara's life, a persistent emptiness she filled with academic achievement and ambition. While neighborhood friends played, Amara studied, eventually earning a full scholarship to Spelman College. At 28, she had blossomed into a woman of remarkable presence, intelligent, poised, and carrying herself with the quiet determination of someone who had always had to prove her worth. Across town in the historic Sweet Auburn district stood the Brooks family home, a Victorian masterpiece housing 3 generations of legal brilliance. Terrence Brooks, at 32, embodied the family's values of dignity, excellence, and community service. His grandfather had established the firm during the civil rights era, defending cases others wouldn't touch. His father expanded it. Now Terrence, with his methodical mind and unwavering integrity, was next in line. Unlike many heirs to family businesses, Terrence embraced his responsibility, viewing law not as a career, but as a calling. Leonard Brooks commanded any room he entered. At 58, he possessed the authoritative voice of a seasoned courtroom warrior and the smooth charm that made juries trust him implicitly. His reputation extended beyond legal circles. Corporate boards sought his counsel, politicians his endorsement, charities his patronage. His wife, Catherine, managed their social calendar with precision, ensuring the Brooks name remained synonymous with respectability and influence. Spelman and Morehouse, sister institutions of Black academic excellence, had produced countless power couples, but Amara and Terrence's meeting seemed almost ordained. They first crossed paths at a debate competition, Amara representing Spelman, Terrence judging for Morehouse. Her passionate argument for educational reform caught his attention. His thoughtful feedback after the debate caught hers. Coffee led to dinner, dinner to weekend visits, and soon they became fixtures in each other's lives. Their relationship progressed with the same thoughtful deliberation that characterized Terrence's approach to everything. No impulsive proposals or whirlwind romance, but a steady building of mutual respect and shared dreams. 5 years of dating culminated in Terrence kneeling before Amara at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens, offering not just a ring, but a promise of partnership. When the Atlanta Journal-Constitution announced their engagement, engagement, it wasn't relegated to the regular wedding section. This union merited front-page coverage in the lifestyle section, legal legacy and culinary empire to unite. The wedding would bring together Black Atlanta's old money and new entrepreneurship, linking two families whose combined influence touched every aspect of city life. The guest list read like a who's who of Atlanta's Black excellence: mayors, former and current, university presidents, music producers, professional athletes, civil rights veterans. The Brooks-Johnson wedding wasn't just a ceremony. It was a social coronation, the official welcoming of Amara into Atlanta's Black aristocracy and the continuation of two families' legacies. What no one suspected was how quickly this perfect match would ignite into perfect tragedy. For Amara, the Brooks family home initially felt like stepping into a foreign country, one with unspoken rules and traditions she couldn't quite grasp. Catherine Brooks, Terrence's mother, evaluated everything from Amara's table manners to her knowledge of social protocols. The pressure to belong intensified with each family gathering. During these moments of quiet anxiety, it was Leonard who often appeared at her side, offering context, explanations, and encouragement. "Don't mind Catherine," he'd say, refreshing Amara's drink. "She treated me the same way when I married into this family. You're doing fine. These small kindnesses accumulated." When Amara mentioned her childhood without a father, Leonard listened with genuine interest. When she expressed uncertainty about joining such a prominent family, he assured her she was worthy. What began as fatherly guidance evolved into longer conversations about books, ambitions, and fears. Leonard became the sounding board Amara had always craved, filling a void she'd carried since childhood. As wedding plans accelerated, Terrence retreated into work. High-profile cases demanded his attention, often keeping him at the office until midnight. Their conversations, once wide-ranging and intimate, narrowed to logistics, venue deposits, guest list disputes, family expectations. When Amara expressed concerns, Terrence responded with distracted reassurance. "My parents had the same issues. It's normal. Everything will be fine." Leonard, however, offered the validation Amara craved. "You're not overreacting," he'd tell her during their increasingly frequent private conversations. "Your feelings matter." 6 weeks before the wedding, tensions peaked during a tasting session when Catherine dismissed Amara's desire to include her mother's recipes. That night, while Terrence attended a client dinner, Amara found herself alone in the Brooks library, fighting back tears of frustration. Leonard entered carrying 2 glasses of bourbon. "Sometimes family traditions need to evolve," he said, sitting closer than propriety allowed. "You deserve to be heard." The room's heavy oak doors and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves created an atmosphere of secluded intimacy. Leonard's hand on hers no longer felt fatherly. His gaze lingered too long. When he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the boundary between comfort and desire blurred. The first kiss, tentative, questioning, quickly escalated into desperate embrace. Both pulled away, breathless, shocked at their transgression, yet already calculating when they might be alone again. What followed was a carefully orchestrated dance of secret meetings and coded messages. Hotel rooms booked under false names. Brief encounters in forgotten corners of the city. Each rendezvous wrapped in layers of justification and denial. For Amara, the affair satisfied complex emotional needs. Leonard offered the paternal approval she'd always longed for, now twisted into romantic desire. He made her feel seen in ways Terrence, with his emotional restraint, never had. Each time Leonard praised her intelligence or beauty, it healed childhood wounds of abandonment. Leonard found in Amara a chance to recapture youth and potency. His marriage to Catherine had cooled into cordial partnership. At 58, he faced growing awareness of his mortality and diminishing relevance. Amara's admiration reaffirmed his self-image as powerful and desirable. Their forbidden connection provided the thrill of risk in a life that had become predictably comfortable. Both recognized the disaster they courted. Both attempted to end it multiple times. Both failed. The power dynamics were never equal. Leonard possessed the authority of age, social position, and soon, familial connection. Amara, despite her accomplishments, remained vulnerable to his manipulation. When guilt overwhelmed her, Leonard would remind her of their special connection and her unique understanding of him. As the wedding approached, their affair intensified, fueled by the knowledge that it must soon end. Neither suspected how catastrophically that end would come. Atlanta provided countless hideaways for Amara and Leonard's forbidden meetings. They crafted elaborate alibis, Leonard claiming bar association meetings, Amara inventing wedding vendor appointments. A downtown hotel became their regular refuge, the staff growing familiar with Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, their preferred alias. Their encounters evolved beyond physical connection. Leonard brought gifts. A vintage first edition of Amara's favorite novel, a pearl bracelet too unique for Catherine's taste. He mapped out fantasies of their future together, painting visions of European getaways where no one would recognize them. These dreams, impossible as they were, hooked Amara deeper into their dangerous liaison. Twice, Amara attempted to break free. The first time came after a close call. Terrence had nearly discovered a text message from his father on her phone. Shaken, she met Leonard at their usual hotel. "This needs to stop," she insisted. "I'm marrying your son in 8 weeks." Leonard's response was calculated. He didn't argue or plead. Instead, he reminded her of her childhood, how she'd always felt unwanted by her father. "Terrence is just like me," he said. "Eventually, he'll grow distant, preoccupied with work. But I'll always see you, Amara. I'll always value you." Her second attempt came 3 weeks before the wedding. This time, Leonard switched tactics, suggesting she was overreacting. "We're adults," he said. "What we have exists in its own space. It doesn't diminish what you feel for Terrence." When that failed, he implied threats. "Imagine how devastated Terrence would be if he discovered us now. Wouldn't it be kinder to keep our secret?" As the wedding date approached, Leonard's behavior grew riskier. He'd find reasons to touch Amara during family gatherings, a hand at the small of her back, fingers lingering when passing a drink. These moments, imperceptible to others, sent Amara's heart racing with both desire and dread. The rehearsal dinner, held at the Brooks family home, became a theater of tension. Amara, dressed in white linen, avoided Leonard's gaze throughout the evening. His toast to the couple dripped with double meanings, to seeing the depth in someone, to truly knowing them as few others do. Catherine noticed her husband's unusual attentiveness to their future daughter-in-law. Terrence observed his father's frequent glances toward Amara. Most concerning to Terrence was Amara's behavior. Her flinching when Leonard approached, her forced smile during his toast, her excessive wine consumption throughout the evening. Later that night, in their apartment, Terrence confronted Amara. "You seem uncomfortable around my father lately," he said, watching her reaction carefully. "Did something happen between you two?" Amara's denial came too quickly, too emphatically. She blamed wedding stress and exhaustion, but Terrence's legal mind, trained to detect half-truths, remained unsatisfied. He said nothing more, but that night, he checked her phone while she slept. Finding nothing, his suspicions remained, waiting for confirmation. "What warning signs do you see in your relationships or those around you? The subtle changes in behavior, the unexplained absences, the defensive reactions to innocent questions. These aren't just plot points in a true crime story. They're real indicators that something may be wrong." Share in the comments section what red flags you've noticed in relationships. Your insight might help someone recognize a dangerous situation before it's too late. May 15th arrived with perfect weather. Sunshine streaming through stained glass windows at Ebenezer Baptist Church, where Atlanta's elite had gathered since dawn. 500 guests filled the pews, including 2 former mayors, a governor, and countless business leaders. The Brooks family had spared no expense. Imported flowers transformed the historic church into a fragrant paradise. A string quartet played Bach, and the bride's gown, a custom Vera Wang creation, awaited its moment. Behind the church doors, Amara stared at her reflection. The woman in the mirror looked like a stranger, beautiful, yes, but hollow-eyed and pale beneath expertly applied makeup. Her mother adjusted the veil, misreading her daughter's hesitation as normal jitters. "You're making the right choice," her mother assured her. "The Brooks family will give you the stability we never had." When the wedding march began, Amara's steps down the aisle became an exercise in compartmentalization. Each footfall required conscious effort. She avoided looking at Leonard in the front row, focusing instead on Terrence's smile. His eyes, so like his father's, watched her approach with unmistakable love. The guilt pressed against her chest, making breathing difficult beneath her corseted bodice. The ceremony passed in a blur of traditional vows and prayers. Amara spoke her promises mechanically, wondering if anyone could hear the falseness in her voice. When Terrence lifted her veil and kissed her, she closed her eyes, pushing away thoughts of Leonard's lips. The reception at the Brooks estate transformed their sprawling gardens into a wonderland of white tents, crystal chandeliers, and tables adorned with silver and orchids. A 12-piece band played as waiters circulated with champagne and Southern-inspired gourmet appetizers. Photographers captured each perfectly staged moment: the couple's first dance, the cake cutting, the toasts. Leonard's speech, as father of the groom, maintained appropriate boundaries, though his eyes lingered on Amara when he spoke of welcoming a daughter into our family. Catherine watched her husband with narrowed eyes, noticing how he avoided her gaze. As evening deepened and stars appeared above the garden, Amara felt increasingly trapped. The weight of pretense, smiling for photos, accepting congratulations, playing the blissful bride, became unbearable. After the third dance with distant relatives, she whispered to a bridesmaid that she needed fresh air and slipped away from the reception tent. The Brooks estate gardens extended beyond the party lights into quiet, private spaces. Amara found solace near a stone fountain, removing her heels and breathing deeply for the first time that day. The distant music and laughter felt like they belonged to another world. "I've been waiting to get you alone." Leonard emerged from the shadows, his tuxedo jacket discarded, bow tie hanging loose around his neck. He carried 2 champagne flutes. "You need to leave," Amara said, voice shaking. "It's done, Leonard. I'm married to your son now. Is that what you really want?" He approached closer, setting down the glasses. "I saw your face during the ceremony. That wasn't happiness, Amara. It doesn't matter what I want. What we did was wrong." Leonard reached for her, his hand cupping her cheek. "We can still leave tonight. I've made arrangements." Amara pushed his hand away. "You're delusional. I won't destroy Terrence like that. You already have." Terrence's voice cut through the darkness. He stood 10 feet away, his expression transformed by fury and pain. How long he had been there, what he had heard, his face answered both questions. "Terrence, please," Amara began. "My own father," Terrence interrupted, advancing toward them. "In my bed? Behind my back?" Leonard straightened, instinctively positioning himself between Terrence and Amara. "Son, this isn't what you think. I heard everything." Terrence lunged forward, shoving his father backward. Leonard stumbled, but regained his balance. "You're drunk. Let's discuss this tomorrow." "There's nothing to discuss." Terrence swung wildly, his fist connecting with Leonard's jaw. The older man retaliated with surprising strength, decades of contained rage finding release. They crashed against the fountain, knocking over the champagne glasses. Amara screamed for them to stop, pulling at Terrence's sleeve, then Leonard's shoulder. In the chaos, Leonard grabbed a heavy stone garden ornament, a small angel, and raised it defensively. Terrence charged forward. Amara moved between them. The angel statue connected with flesh and bone. Blood sprayed across Amara's white dress. Leonard's eyes widened in horror as his father-in-law collapsed at his feet, blood pooling on the manicured grass. Silence descended, broken only by Amara's ragged breathing and the distant music from a celebration now rendered obscene. Amara's scream finally cut through the shock. Guests rushed toward the garden, cell phones illuminating a scene from a nightmare. The bride in her blood-soaked gown, the groom frozen in horror, and Leonard Brooks motionless on the ground. Someone called 911. Someone else pulled Terrence away. Catherine collapsed upon seeing her husband, her wails piercing the night air. Within minutes, police cars and ambulances shattered the exclusive neighborhood's quiet with sirens and flashing lights. EMTs pronounced Leonard dead at the scene, blunt force trauma to the skull. Detectives separated witnesses, establishing a perimeter around the fountain-turned-crime scene. Detective Marcus Williams, a 15-year veteran of Atlanta homicide, noted the inconsistencies immediately. The bride claimed she had struck Leonard accidentally while trying to stop the fight. Terrence insisted he had been defending his wife from his father's advances. Neither story fully explained the angle of impact or the force required to cause such catastrophic damage. By morning, news vans lined the street outside the Brooks estate. The headline, "Murder at Elite Atlanta Wedding," dominated every local station. By afternoon, national outlets picked up the story, captivated by its elements of wealth, sex, and betrayal. Drone footage showed technicians combing the garden while reporters speculated wildly about what had occurred. The Johnson family restaurants emptied overnight, regular customers unwilling to be associated with scandal. The Brooks law firm lost 3 major clients within a week. Catherine Brooks retreated to a sister's home in Savannah, refusing all contact with Amara or her family. Churches that had once welcomed both families suddenly had no room in their pews. Charitable boards requested resignations. Country club memberships were quietly placed under review. Atlanta's Black Elite, a community that had fought so hard for dignity and respect, closed ranks against the shame brought upon them. When police searched Amara's phone, they discovered a secret email account with months of correspondence between her and Leonard. Hotel receipts, explicit messages, and plans for future rendezvous painted a clear picture of their affair. Most damaging was a message sent the morning of the wedding. "Last chance to choose happiness. Meet me in the garden tonight if you want to leave with me." The district attorney, facing intense public interest, charged Amara with second-degree murder. Her initial statement claiming self-defense crumbled against forensic forensic evidence showing the fatal blow came from above, inconsistent with her claim of accidentally striking Leonard while pulling him away from Terrence. Terrence, despite his own trauma, hired Atlanta's most formidable criminal defense attorney for Amara, not out of loyalty, but determination to contain the damage to both families. The attorney immediately began constructing a defense around emotional distress and manipulation by the older, more powerful Leonard. Media outlets dissected every aspect of the case. Journalists uncovered Leonard's previous inappropriate relationships with young women at his firm, establishing a pattern of predatory behavior. They highlighted Amara's fatherless childhood, framing her as vulnerable to Leonard's manipulation. Commentators debated whether this was a crime of passion, self-defense, or premeditated murder disguised as accident. Meanwhile, in the county jail, Amara sat in isolation, still wearing the gold band that had bound her to the Brooks family for less than 12 hours before blood dissolved those ties forever. The Fulton County Courthouse overflowed daily during State versus Johnson. Media outlets battled for limited seats, while spectators lined up before dawn. Inside courtroom 4B, District Attorney Eleanor Martinez built her case methodically against Amara. This defendant, Martinez told the jury during opening statements, engaged in a calculated affair with her fiancé's father, manipulated both men, and when confronted, chose murder over exposure. The prosecution presented forensic evidence showing the garden ornament's impact angle matched someone of Amara's height, swinging downward with significant force, inconsistent with accidental contact during a struggle. The state introduced the secret email account, hotel receipts, and surveillance footage of Amara and Leonard entering various establishments together. Most devastating was the message Leonard sent the morning of the wedding, suggesting a planned rendezvous in the garden. Defense attorney Malcolm Reed countered with a psychological framework, bringing in experts to explain how Leonard's position of power as an older man, a father figure, and family patriarch created a profound imbalance in the relationship. Ms. Johnson lost her father at age 6, testified Dr. Regina Wilson, a clinical psychologist. This created a vulnerability to male authority figures offering validation. Leonard Brooks expertly exploited this vulnerability, creating emotional dependency that Ms. Johnson experienced as love. Former employees from Leonard's law firm testified about his pattern of pursuing younger women in positions beneath him. 3 described inappropriate advances, painting a portrait of a man who regularly abused his power for sexual gratification. On day 7, Terrence Brooks took the stand. The courtroom fell silent as he entered, noticeably thinner than in his wedding photos from just months earlier. "Did you suspect your father and fiancé were having an affair?" asked Martinez. "I noticed changes in both of them," Terrence replied, voice steady but hollow. "My father sought reasons to be alone with Amara. She became anxious in his presence. I checked her phone once, but found nothing. What did you see in the garden that night?" "My father telling my wife they could leave together." He had his hand on her face. Terrence's composure cracked. "I confronted them. We fought. Amara tried to separate us." Then he paused, collecting himself. "Then I saw my father fall. There was blood everywhere." During cross-examination, Reed focused on Leonard's character. "Had your father ever pursued your previous girlfriends?" After a long pause, Terrence answered, "Yes, twice." On the final day, Amara took the stand, describing how Leonard's mentorship evolved into manipulation and sexual coercion. She recounted multiple attempts to end the relationship and his threats to expose her if she left him. Regarding the fatal night, she testified, "Leonard and Terrence were fighting. I grabbed the statue to push them apart. Leonard turned suddenly. I never intended." She broke down, unable to continue. After 14 hours of deliberation, the jury returned guilty of involuntary manslaughter, not murder. The judge, acknowledging both Amara's vulnerability and her responsibility, sentenced her to 6 years in prison with possibility of parole after 4. This tragedy illuminates psychological patterns that appear repeatedly in relationship crimes. When we examine Amara's background, we see how early abandonment created a template for her adult relationships. Children who lose parental figures often develop what psychologists call attachment wounds, deep emotional gaps they unconsciously seek to fill throughout life. The absence of Amara's father created a specific vulnerability, explains forensic psychologist Dr. Elaine Westmore, who analyzed similar cases. She was primed to respond to Leonard's attention because he represented the paternal approval she never received. This isn't uncommon. We seek in adulthood what we lacked in childhood. Leonard's behavior follows classic patterns of predatory grooming. He identified Amara's vulnerability, positioned positioned himself as a mentor, gradually crossed boundaries, and then used both emotional manipulation and power dynamics to maintain control. His history of pursuing younger women demonstrates this wasn't an isolated incident, but a calculated behavioral pattern. The most dangerous relationships often begin with meeting genuine emotional needs. Leonard initially provided Amara with understanding, guidance, and validation, all healthy forms of connection. The relationship became toxic when these positive elements twisted into manipulation, secrecy, and exploitation of power imbalances. Terrence's emotional distance during wedding planning created additional vulnerability. When relationships face stress, communication becomes essential. His retreat into work and dismissal of Amara's concerns pushed her towards someone who appeared to listen. This pattern, emotional neglect creating space for a third party, appears in countless relationship breakdowns. Similar dynamics appeared in the Betty Broderick case, where abandonment fears and betrayal culminated in violence. The Richardson family tragedy in Colorado showed how unaddressed emotional needs created fertile ground for manipulation. The Menendez brothers case revealed how family facades often mask profound dysfunction. These cases teach crucial life lessons. First, understand your emotional patterns. Unresolved childhood wounds don't heal naturally. They require conscious work. Therapy provides tools to identify and address these gaps before they lead to destructive choices. Second, recognize power imbalances in relationships. Age differences, professional authority, and family dynamics create vulnerability to manipulation. Equal partnerships require equal agency. Third, maintain communication during stress. When Terrence withdrew during wedding planning, he created distance that Leonard exploited. Difficult conversations prevent larger catastrophes. Fourth, watch for isolation tactics. Leonard systematically separated Amara from support networks, making her dependent on his validation. Healthy relationships expand your world rather than shrinking it. Have you witnessed these warning signs in relationships around you? Perhaps you've experienced manipulation firsthand or observed concerning power dynamics among friends or family. Share your observations in the comments. Your insight might help others identify dangerous patterns before they escalate. Like this video if you found these psychological insights valuable, and share it with someone who might benefit from understanding these relationship dynamics. 3 years have passed since that blood-soaked wedding night in Atlanta's elite circles. The elegant Brooks estate stands empty now, impossible to sell despite multiple price reductions. The garden fountain where Leonard died removed, but the property's history impossible to erase. Amara serves her sentence at Lee Arundel State Prison, where she leads a support group for women whose relationships led to criminal charges. Her mother visits monthly, bringing news of the outside world and managing what remains of their restaurant business. Now a single location in a modest neighborhood, the family name forever altered. Terrence Brooks left Atlanta 6 months after the trial, abandoning his family's law practice for a position with a corporate firm in Chicago. Colleagues describe him as brilliant but distant, a man who works 18-hour days and maintains no personal relationships. He filed for divorce while Amara awaited sentencing, the marriage legally lasting just 37 days. Catherine Brooks moved permanently to Savannah, living in quiet seclusion. She declined all interview requests and filed lawsuits against 3 publications that attempted to chronicle her husband's history of inappropriate relationships. The Johnson and Brooks families, once pillars of Atlanta's Black community, now serve as cautionary examples in ethics discussions at Spelman and Morehouse, where students analyze how power, vulnerability, and secrecy combined with devastating consequences. Perhaps the most important lesson from this tragedy is how quickly seemingly solid lives can disintegrate when built on emotional fault lines. The space between appropriate connection and inappropriate attachment can be crossed in a moment, but the consequences echo for lifetimes. The boundaries between mentor and predator, between seeking validation and surrendering agency, between passion and obsession. These lines appear clear from a distance, but blur dangerously up close. Each of us carries vulnerabilities, areas where our judgment weakens and our needs override override our wisdom. Recognizing these fault lines in ourselves might be the only protection against becoming characters in similar tragedies. Subscribe to Mr. Body Crime for more true crime stories that delve beyond sensational headlines to examine the psychological truths beneath. Each case we explore contains lessons that might help you recognize warning signs in your own life or the lives of those you care about. Join our community committed to understanding human behavior at its darkest and learning from others' tragic choices.